Dear one, dear friend, dear you, I write to you today, turning to this old school form of communication, a letter. It's been a while since I've written a letter, so please forgive me if I forget the conventions. I'm sure there will be other more important transgressions I will also need forgiveness for, so we might as well get into the practice on these easier stuffs. I would have handwritten this, but my hand is so out of practice that I fear you would not be able to translate the markings on paper into anything coherent. I am well, and I hope you are too. The first, I am well, is a claim that I cannot absolutely prove, but believe that at least if I start with it, I can eventually manifest my wellness. The second is a true hope, a thought that you are well and good and living a life that generates at least some happiness. If not for you right now, then perhaps your life generates happiness for others. Weather seems something commonly reported upon in letters. You and I are travelers. And knowing the variability of weather we call good and weather we call bad seems important, if only for our comfort. I'm loath to comment, however, on the weather. Like my response to, "How are you?" "I'm well. I'm fine." I think any comment on the weather might mostly be aspirational, a bold claim against something I cannot control, as if by naming it, I can at least claim a kind of relationship with it. Anyway, the weather in my life is variable. Sometimes sunny and warm, sometimes cold and rainy. There are storms and winds, to be sure. And what I might call bad weather is mostly just inconvenient, forcing me to stop, or at least slow my frenetic pace. Might we, as travelers, then, declare all of it beautiful, if not useful? Rest is at least as urgent as movement. By travelers, my friend, I don't mean us moving from place to place, visiting the foreign or the familiar. You and I are travelers in what I might call the spirit, the capital letter journey of our lives. Although the spirit sometimes catches in my throat. All we have learned in our rational scientific ways of seeing the world would perhaps scoff at something so ill-defined and mysterious as spirit. Still, I think it is a useful term to describe the something of the something more that you and I sometimes sense but don't quite realize. Something more is why we journey. A gnawing sense that there is a purpose to my life, to your life, to this life. That there's a purpose to every life beyond the reproduction of it, beyond the evolutionary necessity of each little bit. I spend many hours in autumn splitting and stacking wood, to burn in my wood stove and fireplace. The work of it is fairly simple, and in so doing it, my mind and senses begin to wander and wonder. I become aware of the pieces of the trees I'm dividing into smaller chunks, the time they represent, mostly longer than I have been alive. And I remember how the tree takes solar energy and water and whatever elements and transforms them into this thing we call a tree, and how these trees create leaves to capture that energy, and how those leaves also transform carbon dioxide, my out-breath, to oxygen, my in-breath. And now that its life is complete, I am preparing to extract all that energy it collected so that it may warm my body and perhaps my soul. Standing in my woodlot on a cool November morning, I am feeling the connection between the seed, the earth, the air, the sun, the leaf, the tree, and me. And as I hold the heavy wood in my arms, I desire that my life may mean as much, be as useful and as transformative. Is this not evidence enough that there is something more in this life? Did you read that John O'Donohue poem I sent you? The one about the unknown self? When I think about what it is we are journeying for, what it is we are seeking, I think of that unknown self. It's kind of hard to believe that after all our years, no matter what age we are living, that there be a part of us that remains unknown to us. Perhaps it is as much forgotten as it is unknown. But that may be a distinction without a difference. You and I have been, in one way or another, seeking that unknown self. That's the journey we share. But we both know that the traveling isn't easy. And I'm not really certain of the destination. Besides, all the maps and the journals and the directions that have been left to us from our ancestors feel so often useless. They were not on our journey, but on their own. I don't know. I suppose their maps aren't entirely useless. There are some core truths that arise from their struggles. Even though truths feel malleable and so much depends on the context, I hate that part of truth. For I want things to be true, capital T, eternally. And perhaps there are those capital T truths, but perhaps we have yet to find them. But still, there are some truths that I believe are useful and necessary as we travel together. Love is one. Love is one. Love as both a quality of relationship and a motive force in this life. Motive force isn't my original phrasing. I don't know where I picked it up, but it is expressive. Motive, the reason for doing something. And force is a strength or an energy that is an attribute of making something happen. So, love is both a reason and an energy of making something happen. Like leaves converting carbon dioxide and solar energy into the fibers of what we call tree. Do you think it's possible that the motive force of photosynthesis is love? Is that so radical a belief? A kind of no object love? Not that the tree loves you, but is generative through that motive force? I just killed an ant. Right now, as I was writing, it was crawling across the back of my right hand, and my left index finger automatically, instinctively crushed it and brushed it away. And I wonder who I am that claims a motive force of love and still unconsciously crushes an ant that posed nothing more than a brief tickling sensation on my skin. If love is light, and not love is darkness, I fear the darkness within myself. And I fear the darkness in you. And on any given day, I'm not sure which I fear more, your darkness or my own. Going back to that O'Donoghue poem where he writes about the true self, the unknown self, who prefers the patterns of the dark, for it knows how your primeval heart sisters every cell of your life to all your known mind would avoid. Your primeval heart sisters every cell of your life to all your known mind would avoid. And that's the thing. My known mind would very much like to avoid the darkness that is part of me, and to especially avoid the darkness that is part of you. But perhaps that's what those ancient ancestors, the mystics and the storytellers, the weird ones that we keep at arm's length, have been gently trying to show us on the journey maps that they left behind, that the darkness isn't a place to fear. And it isn't a place to avoid. And it isn't a place to think our way through. Perhaps in that darkness, which is really, friends, just the unknown, the unexplored corners of our life, perhaps in that darkness there is a kind of wisdom, it is a guide to our wanderings and worryings, a guide that shows up and draws in our dreams, draws in our possibilities, to take us beyond our threshold of wants, as the poet says, and toward the wholeness, the fullness of life, the something more that we long for. Dear you, I wish I could tell you for certain what that would feel like, what it would be like to be whole, complete, fully alive, and generating life with a motive force of love. However, I only get the same glimpses of that as you do. And I move with the same hungers as you do. So upon what do we journey together? Perhaps it's a set of beliefs in something more. A belief, even when belief seems foolish. Echoing those lines from the poet Ellen Bass, who wrote in Pray for Peace, she said, with each breath in, take in the faith of those who have believed when belief seemed foolish and who persevered. So I ask you to hold on to some of those beliefs. Hold on to a belief that no matter where we are in our lifespan, there is something more within us to uncover, to learn, something more to become. Hold on to a belief that transformation is possible, knowing the tree's wisdom of transforming sunlight and carbon dioxide and water to that which we know is tree, taking that wisdom and believing that we can transform brokenness to wholeness, that we can transform oppression to power, from unjust to just, that we can transform separateness to relationship and isolation to beloved community. Hold on, dear friend, dear one, to a belief that we are not alone in this journey, in this life, in this universe. Whatever is our true unknown self, we cannot discern it without others. And while it is true, there's a lot of inside work that we will each perform ourselves, a contemplative patience, a holy curiosity, an opening of ourselves to all of life with wonder, awe, and imagination. It is also true that without each other to be present to one another, to practice with one another, to share what we have experienced with one another, we will never know, never really know in our body, mind, and soul what wholeness is like and what love is calling us to be. Hold on to a belief that there's a motive force in this universe. Hold on to a belief there's a motive force in this life. And we call it love. An energy that keeps us in deep relationship with all that we call living and all that we claim is not living. All, the wholeness of the universe, from quanta to you, to the oak tree, to the Hercules, Corona Borealis, Great Wall, the largest structure known in the observable universe. And with those beliefs, begin again and again and again to respond to your call of your own to the call of your own unknown self. To respond to the call of your deepest longing. Begin again to seek the wisdom that comes from the journey, that arises from the darkness, that brings you closer every step to wholeness. To embody your place in this life, in this time. To embody your place in this love. And so, dear one, dear friend, don't stop believing in your life, in my life, in our life together. It is our belief that makes the way for us to travel together once again. Don't stop believing. Don't stop. With love, Greg.